as Americans, I think we also need to face up to the flip side of the rise of the West, which is, to some degree, a decline in American standing and influence in various international arenas. I would argue that the United States is in an, I think, an historically unprecedented condition. It emerged from the Cold War as this unquestioned global hegemon. And now, not even 2 decades after the end of the Cold War, we have a situation in which the military dimension of American hegemony seems unassailable. If you look out, even with the most optimistic projections of the growth in Chinese, Indian, perhaps Russian military capabilities, I would argue that the United States is going to have a unique capacity to project large amounts of military power around the world for at least the next 2 decades, and quite possibly longer than that. So the military dimension of American hegemony seems to be pretty intact. There are, as always, limits to what military power can do for a hegemon. We seem periodically to need to remind ourselves of that. Perhaps the Iraq War is one such exercise. But in a lot of other important dimensions of international life, particularly economic arenas, U.S. standing and influence is in decline. And I think that's an historically unique situation where you have a global power whose military hegemony continues to be quite robust, but whose power and standing in a lot of other critical arenas is in decline. Okay. Now, what has conditioned all of this? The rise of the rest and, at least to some degree, the decline of American hegemony. I would argue that it's grounded in the intersection of 2 clusters of developments. One of those clusters I will describe as structural shifts in global energy markets. The other cluster I will describe as strategic trends in global financial markets. And you put the 2 of those together, and that really is, I think, the backdrop to the issue that we're discussing today. When I talk about structural shifts in global energy markets, I would boil those down to 2. On the demand side, we have, since the turn of the millennium, seen what I think can be very easily characterized as a demand explosion in the developing world.